Okay, so why don't we have a word of prayer, shall we? Father in heaven, I thank you for the opportunity to open again this great hand of nature that you have put in our creation. And I ask that you'll give us a mind to be able to understand these systems, that we might be able to grow without fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, that we might be in harmony with our bodies and our land with your creation. In Jesus' name. Okay, so this is class number 2, and basically we have soil organic decomposers. We got 2 of them, okay? And then we have the predators that eat them. And the one that we're going to focus on today is bacteria. Next week we're going to focus on fungi. Both of them are fascinating, really fascinating. And decomposers, they consume or eat dead plants and animals. And decomposers then reduces them to simpler forms of matter. So we've got 2 primary decomposers. We got the fungi and the bacteria. So what they do is they just eat plant material. Okay? So then they turn it into food for the trees. That's basically as simple as that. But in the bacteria it goes several different chains. Now, in a food chain, you guys understand this. Now, everybody understands the food chain when a caterpillar eats a plant, and then a bird eats a caterpillar, and the snake eats the bird, and then the owl eats the snake. That's a food chain. Well, the same thing happens in the soil. In the soil, we have a food chain. We call it a soil food web. And basically, now it's a bit more complicated, but not really. It just looks it because of all this stuff in here. But basically what we've got is bacteria and fungi are eating this organic matter, okay? And then protozoas eat the bacteria, and nematodes eat the bacteria, and they eat protozoas, and they eat fungi, and earthworms eat them, and arthropods eat everything, and so everybody's eating and pooping. Okay, so that's what it's all about. But in each process, it becomes more and more potent. All right, now, think about this. This bacteria breaks down the organic matter and stores in its body, it's called immobilization, stores in its body the nutrients and won't let anybody have it. So God raises up the great nematodes and the protozoas to eat them. And when they eat them, then they poop out 4 times the amount of nutrition that was originally in their body through a process that God put inside their bodies. Now the earthworms come along and they eat the protozoas and the nematodes and the bacteria too, and it multiplies the nutrition of the soil by 4-fold. Each step multiplies it by 4-fold. So, if you only had bacteria in the soil, you would have nothing going on. You would be tying up nutrition, and it would not be available to the plant. So God made the protozoas, the nematodes, and the earthworms, and the arthropods to eat them in order to release them. Okay? All right. Okay, so here's another picture of it. All the different microarthropods and arthropods and bacteria and fungi. But basically, the plant is in control of all of this. In the plant root hairs, there's a chemical that comes out of it called an exudate. It's a gooey substance. Here's some of it dripping out of this root hair, okay, that was taken out of the ground and held there for a while, and it just drips out of it. They actually attract all the bacteria and fungi right to the root zone, what we call the rhizosphere. Attract it right to it. So, what is in this? Okay? Well, right now, the scientists have calculated 1.25 million different recipes in this exudate. If you fertilize a plant one time, it shuts the exudates off and it will not grow again. So you don't fertilize it because you don't want to keep this from happening. So what happens is it puts out this exudate and everybody says, "Oh, look at that food, let me go get it." Okay, so the bacteria like this stuff, and the fungi like this stuff, and it goes right to it. All right? Now, what's in it? It's about 80 to 90% sugars. And then it has protein and carbohydrates, more complex carbohydrates in it. So it's kind of like cakes and cookies. Don't you like cakes and cookies? I like cakes and cookies. Okay, so the bacteria and fungi like cakes and cookies too. So basically, they see this and they say, oh, I want some of that. Now, everybody thinks the bacteria is immobile. It's not. It swims around like crazy. Some of them don't swim, and they hitch a ride on the swimmers. And there's all kinds of different ones. In fact, there's over 1 million different species of bacteria. So they go and they're attracted to the root hairs. Now, what's interesting about this exudate is this. One root hair might be putting out one type of exudate. Another root hair could be putting out a different type of exudate. Now, why would it do that? Well, at different times of its growing, the formula changes. Why would it do that? Well, at one time, it might need lots of nitrogen. So it's searching for the bacteria that are nitrogen fixers. Okay? So that brings the nitrogen to it. At another point, it might be putting on fruit or the flowers, so it wants potassium or phosphorus. So it attracts a different type. It sends out a little different formula to attract a different type of bacteria and a different type of fungi. So that's what this is all about. It's in total control. This exudate is very sweet. Now, this is a picture. I took this picture of a protozoa. Okay, that's a protozoa that's eating bacteria. It's a slow-moving flagellant. And this slow-moving flagellant is just sitting there sucking in the bacteria. Now, when you look at some soils under the microscope, you won't see any of these protozoas. And the reason why you won't is because they're all dead. You killed them. Bacteria will come back first, and eventually the protozoas will come along and start to infiltrate a little bit at a time. You can actually take and, now this is at 1,000-time power, okay? Most of the time I look at things with 400 power, but this is 1,000 times. I'm just flipping it right now back to 400, and you'll see the difference here. Okay, so here's a root hair, and there's a root hair, a very healthy root hair, I might add. And that right there is fungi, and you can see the segmented body of the fungi. And I wish they'd quit moving around. See the segments? All right, that's a fungi. And it's not the best in health of it, but it's not bad. But what I'm going to show you in just a moment here, if it'll move along, I found something interesting. And protozoas, they multiply by dividing. And they divide, every 4 hours they divide in 2, and sometimes into 4. And I happened to catch it on this video, okay? And as we go along here, I'm just going to let it roll a minute. Now, you have to have plenty of food, and when you see, I'm focusing at different levels. You know, on a microscope, when you're looking at a slide under a microscope, you can actually see 7 different levels as you focus your microscope down. Okay, here is what they call a ciliate protozoa, and he's going around looking for food. There's not a lot of food in there for him. They've eaten it all already. All right? So he's going around hunting it, and then there's an amoeba. Okay, now here's a bacteria rolling around. You see it? Okay, so they move pretty fast, and they're hunting them down. Come on now, let's go. I didn't realize this. That was the top of the slide today. Come on. Oh, there's another cilia. So I'm just going all around this little slide. So it's an inch in diameter. And I thought it was on here. Maybe not. I might go on. We don't want to take too much time on this. Okay, come on. Bingo. All right. Here's a guy dividing. Okay, see him? See it dividing? Now, he runs out of energy through this process. Now, I'm going to focus it on a little bigger, and then I'm going to focus it back to 400. There he is. Okay, so here he is dividing. This is an amoeba, what they call an amoeba, and they're really, really slow moving, so you can take and find them. Once you find them, you can just kind of focus in on them. I don't have quite enough light for 1,000 here. I should have bumped it up a bit, but I'm going back to 400 because it's pointless. Now find it. Okay, here he is. Now he's dividing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See him dividing? Isn't that remarkable? Now, this slide is getting old enough now, it's going to start drying out and falling apart, but he's dividing. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, here is a ciliate going around, and he's hunting in this, what they call a soil aggregate. This is a piece of soil held together by fungi and glomalin, what we call glomalin, which is a glue. Okay, so he's going around hunting them. And let's go on to the next one. Here is that same ciliate hunting inside that same, at 1,000 power. You see how dark, much darker that is? I should have probably brightened it up a bit. But he's going around and he's hunting down these bacteria, and it's easier to get them inside this soil aggregate. I'm lightening it up a bit, but at any rate, they're hunters. Now, when they eat that bacteria and they poop it out, it's super rich nutrition for the plant. So you want all these you can get. Now, where would you get them? If you don't have them in your soil, you go get a bale of alfalfa hay from Tractor Supply. That's where I got him from. And you soak them in the water with a little bubbler, a 5-gallon bucket. Just put them in the bottom. Put a little bubbler like for fish aquarium. Put it in the bottom and bubble it. 24 hours later, all of these will be released. You'll have about 5 million of them in a little bucket. Pour them in your compost tea or pour them right on your soil, and you'll have your friends. All right. So that's how I got them, and then I inoculated my soil with them. Okay, so here are 2 flagellates and 1 ciliate gathered together. Now, you see this swirling action? All right, they're just holding themselves together, and they're sucking in these things right into their body. You can see these are single-cell animals. They breathe air. They breathe air. And then they eat bacteria. It's just amazing stuff. All right. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, RCs are not here. No, the RCs are here. Okay, this is RC's garden soil. Now, when you look at their garden soil, they sent me their garden soil. It's full of bacteria. This has no fungi in it. It's the perfect media to grow weeds. If you have fungi in the soil with it, it won't grow weeds. And I'm going to cover that next week. Because the fungi destroy weeds. I know that sounds really crazy, but as long as you understand the principle of having a more predominant fungi, then you can get rid, can you close that door? You can get rid of your weed situation. But their soil is actually very healthy, other than that it doesn't have any fungi in it. Now, they had this other area that they said, can you look at this and tell me whether it's good? And I'm going to cover more of that next week. And this is their other area. Here's what they call a rod bacteria. Swimming around. People don't understand. The bacteria swim all over the place. We're going to a little focus on something else, but I'll show you the rest of it next week. It's full of fungi. So what they did, the RCs did, they took this soil that was down in the bottom area, and it's like a peat. And they mixed it with their garden soil, and they didn't have to fertilize. Now, here's the soil aggregate. That is a flagellate, Protozoa. It happens to be dormant right now, because the soil dried out before I got a chance to put on it. But when you go through this whole slide, and I'm not going to go through all today, this is fungi, but when you go through this whole slide, you'll see hundreds of these. So what they did, they didn't have any of these in their garden. So they went and took the soil from another area and put it in their garden, and then they could grow vegetables without fertilizer. Okay? Because the soil food web is going on. All right, let's go on. Now, that happens to be what they call a dancing nematode. He's eating bacteria. He's already put it to music just because it's funny. But he's going around, swimming around, eating, and I didn't take that picture. Then you have the arthropods, and the microarthropods, and they're in the soil. Now, in soil, you'd be surprised. In healthy agricultural soil, you'll have 100 million to 1 billion bacteria. In healthy soil, you'll have several yards in it, and I'm talking about in 1 gram of soil. You'll have 1 yard of fungi in healthy soil. And in protozoas, you'll have several thousand flagellants, amoeba, and 100 to several hundred ciliates. And then nematodes, you'll have 10 to 20 bacteria. And that's in 1 teaspoon. 1 gram is equal to 1 teaspoon of soil. You'll have all of this life in healthy soil. And then you have arthropods up to 100 in 1 teaspoon of soil. Most of them are microscopic. They are little insects in the soil that eat bacteria. And they eat also protozoas. And then you have earthworms, and in a square foot, you're going to have 5 to 30. But in the arthropods, it's a square foot up to 100. All right? So that's basically it. Now, earthworms, what do they eat? Dirt. Everybody thinks they eat dirt. They don't. Dirt happens to be the medium who they're traveling through. But they eat bacteria, they eat fungi, they eat protozoa, they eat nematodes, they eat organic matter, and they eat microarthropods. But they do not eat dirt. Do not. Everybody thinks they do, but they don't. All right. They're going through and they're trying to find everything that they can. Yes?
If your soil is chock full of earthworms, what does that mean?
That means it's a healthy soil.
Then why don't we eat earthworms?
Well, some people do. Would you like to try?
I wouldn't mind trying.
I saw a guy yesterday on a video eating them. Okay, so earthworm benefits. I forgot to include that. Okay, they destroy all soil pathogens. Okay, every single disease in the soil, an earthworm takes care of and destroys it and makes it food.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's amazing. All right? They also destroy E. coli. Now, this is something you need to understand. In the new agricultural laws that are coming out, in the big farms, they have to adhere to it. The little farms, we don't have to adhere to it until 2017. This is the rule. You cannot take a cow and put it on a field to eat your corn stalks if you're going to grow anything in there in the next 9 months to a year. That will be for human consumption. Why? Because they'll poop in the field, and the E. coli's in the field. It's uptaken into the plant tissue, and then you eat it and you die. All right? But in a healthy soil that has microbiology, it can live a maximum of 48 hours. And it's destroyed by the earthworms, the bacteria, the microarthropods, the protozoas, the nematodes, destroy it dead. Now, most of it is dead in 24 hours, about 93%. 7% of it takes an additional 24 hours to destroy. All right? They also eat and destroy root knot nematodes, which are the bad nematodes. There's good nematodes, there's bad nematodes. There's good protozoas, there's bad protozoas. There's good bacteria, there's bad bacteria. But they eat them. And what's interesting, well, I'll cover that in just a second. They eat and destroy all bad protozoas. They do not destroy the good nematodes and protozoas. Now, here's something interesting. The scientist I'm taking this course from, this microbiology course from, she says this: we don't understand this. There must be something cellularly different about the good ones versus the bad ones. But the earthworms will eat all of them. And out the back end come the good ones, all alive and well and healthy. The bad ones are destroyed in the gut of the earthworm. Isn't that amazing? That is a God thing, guys. That's a God thing. And I'll show you another God thing in just a moment. They also do not harm seeds. Earthworms will eat the seed, the little tiny seeds. It'll come right out their back end and be inoculated with the most beautiful bacteria that makes them germinate wonderfully. It's a remarkable thing. And also they do soil aeration. They're the plow of the soil. Now, in the Nile region, there's an area in the Nile region that gets flooded each year, and then the earthworms, literally there's 4 feet deep of earthworm castings, which is poop. And they don't plow that area. All they do is plant right in it, and everything grows beautifully. And they don't fertilize it. They don't do anything to it at all. It's a remarkable thing. If you can get earthworms to work for you, they'll do a job that you won't want to do, and that's hoeing and raking and shoveling and turning soil. They'll do it automatically for you. All right, a typical earthworm, this came out of university. A typical earthworm can easily consume 2 tons of dry matter per acre per year. partly digesting and mixing it with the soil. 2 tons, 1 earthworm. Will an earthworm cut in 2 become 2 worms? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Yes, I think it
Yes,
does.
yes.
Yes? Yes, Miss Arcee?
I heard it about it that if you cut them in half, even if you cut the head off, it will grow into a new one.
Okay, it will not make 2 worms, but if you cut it really right at the precise area, that head will grow a new tail. But you have to be really careful. Now, the reason why I even brought this up is this. That's a wives' tale. It doesn't make 2 worms. If you rototill your garden, you'll kill all your worms dead or in the doornail. Do not rototill. During this process, I'm going to teach you how to garden without rototilling and without spraying herbicide on it, how to cure your pathogens, how you can work much easier instead of much harder. Okay, what are the earthworm's enemies? Well, first of all, armadillos, raccoons, and moles eat them. Fertilizers kill them dead or in a doornail. Pesticides kill them. Roundup, herbicides kill them. And plows and rototillers kill them dead. Fungicides kill them. In fact, these chemicals destroy all the biology in the soil and in us. What are we made of? Soil. That was a good answer. Who said soil? Yes, soil has the microbiology in it. Dirt does not. Okay, it has the bad pathogens. Okay, so I want you to understand this principle. Everything that applies to us applies to the soil, applies to us. Because God made us. He knows what we're made of. He built us the way we're built. Okay? So, I want you to see
Most of what is grown today is treated with pesticides. That's not so healthy for the environment, but does it really affect us? Meet the palmbok family. They don't eat organic food.
Det kostar mer än vanlig mat. Det blir en stor skillnad när man är många i en familj.
Swedish.
But for the next 2 weeks, the palmboks are going to eat only organic. Before they begin, urine samples are taken from each of the family members. And it turns out they have a number of different pesticides inside their bodies.
Vi hittade framförallt insektsmedel, svampmedel och stråförkortningsmedel.
Vi äter insektsmedel.
Ja, äckligt.
Ja.
So, everything in the kitchen is replaced, and they begin eating only organic. Then, another round of samples are taken, and now, almost all the pesticides have disappeared.
Vi vet ju väldigt lite om långtidseffekter av att äta mat.
Okay, so what happens to those pesticides? Well, your body's trying to get rid of them. So in your feces, they've done samples in your feces is full of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Inside your urine, you have all these pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. What does it do to the intestinal microbiome? It destroys all the biology that are going on. A lot of people don't have any good biology in their intestines. Just a bunch of pathogens, making cancers and poisons and Alzheimer's promoters and all kinds of very bad things. Now, Dr. Mercola, you need to put this in YouTube and watch it. It's Dr. Mercola interviews Dr. Perlmutter about gut microbiome. And I'm going to show you just a beginning of 58 minutes. All right, just a little segment of it. If you'll put this in, you'll see 58 minutes of interesting facts that mirror what I'm talking about in the soil. If you put Roundup, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, or fertilizers on the soil, you kill all the biology dead or in the doornail. You do the exact same thing when you eat that food and put it in your body, and it goes into your intestines. It destroys the microbiome inside your intestines. There is an answer for it, and this previous one said, get on organic. Organic has organic foods in the store have approximately 1% of the pesticides that you find in normal foods. It does have some pesticides. It is by law allowed to be up to 1%. So when you eat that food, you're not going to get all the poisons that kill the biology in your intestines. I'm growing completely pesticide-free, and it's based on the conviction of trying to get our bodies back in harmony with the way God grows things. And I'm trying to avoid Alzheimer's. It runs in my family. Dr. Perlmutter is a neurologist, and he covers the studies done on what causes Alzheimer's, and they're finding some really startling information. I want you to see just a little bit of this.
Brain disorders are among modern medicine's greatest challenges. But leading-edge research reveals that the solution lies not in the brain itself, but in the gut. Home to 100 trillion bacteria, the human microbiome. These bacteria determine the brain's destiny. By nurturing gut health, you can open the door to unprecedented brain health potential. From internationally acclaimed neurologist and #1 New York Times best-selling author comes Brainmaker, the power of gut microbes to heal and protect your brain for life. Now available wherever books are sold.
Who would have known that the quality of the bacteria in your gut has an enormous influence on your brain? Hi, this is Dr. Mercola, helping you take control of your health. And today, I am joined by one of my good friends, Dr. David Perlmutter, who is here to talk to us about that topic, which is explored in great detail in his new book, Brainmaker, The Power of Gut Microbes to Heal and Protect Your Brain. So, welcome, and thank you for joining
Oh,
us.
it's always a pleasure. We always have a really great conversation.
We sure do. And I neglected to mention, just to provide some more information about you that our listeners and viewers may not be aware, but you're board-certified neurologist, fellow of the American College of Nutrition, and actually I was able to get into that too thanks through your assistance, and lots of awards. Last time you were not only a New York Times bestseller, but #1 bestseller for a number of weeks with your previous book called Grain Brain. So I'm sure that you're going to see equal success because you are really a mover and a shaker. You're getting phenomenal exposure in the media, and you're really one of the primary movers of this information, which is really contrasted to the traditional role model, so the role or model that provides this natural approach. And we need this, the public needs it so badly, and I'm just so glad you're a really great advocate for it.
Well, I appreciate that. And, my roots are in the field, beginning in neurology. That's, what I did. I practiced traditional neurology from the get-go. And, what became so frustrating to me was neurology is a field, I don't mean to be too derogatory, but sometimes you have to light the candle, but other times maybe curse the darkness just a little bit. And it's really a field of pretty much diagnose and then adios, meaning, we make a diagnosis, we name something, whether it's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, and then pretty much that's the best you can do. We don't have treatments for the underlying conditions, for Alzheimer's, for Parkinson's. Yeah, the symptoms of Parkinson's can be treated, and the symptoms of headache, for example, can be treated with pain medication, much as the same way. But we're now recognizing from research at our most well-respected institutions from around the globe that, as you mentioned, who knew? The gut bacteria are wielding this very, very powerful sword of Damocles, determining whether we're going to have a healthy brain or not, whether our brain is going to function well or not, and whether our brain is going to become diseased or not. And who knew that we'd be referring back to the gut? And, it turns out that this notion of what is called reductionism, where the body is reduced to its individual parts, the brain is in Cleveland and the gut is who knows where, down in Florida, it is really a kind of a very silly notion. Every system in the body interrelates in a way that ultimately, hopefully, will cause the manifestation of what we call health and disease resistance. And, that said, it's humbling. It's humbling to think that we're able to have this conversation right now because of the fact that we've got healthy bacteria in our gut that are sending good signals to our brains and allowing us to function.
And that seems to be one of the primary mechanisms of action of how a healthy diet works, is it upregulates and modifies and improves the quality of the gut microbiome.
Exactly. And you know, these bacteria, these 100 trillion bacteria that live within the gut, are so intimately involved in the brain at a number of levels. They manufacture neurochemicals.
Okay, so he goes on to explain. Let me explain this thing to you because I'm going to give you the shortened version. You guys need to watch the video. It's really important. Inside the gut, if you take antibiotics, what does it do? It destroys all the bacteria in your gut, right? Everybody knows that. So what do you do to replace that bacteria in your gut? Take probiotics. Okay, what is probiotics? That is a pill that you take orally that goes and replaces all that bacteria that you just destroyed, nuking them with this antibiotic. And now, what they're finding, though, is this. It's better if you put the pill, dissolve it in warm water, take an enema, and shoot it up your rectum. It's a lot more effective because the acids don't kill the biology as it's going through your GI tract, okay, and your stomach. So they're finding several different things. They've done. He said that there are studies all over Europe, and he's done these studies too. They took 250 patients with diabetes, and there were 250 patients. And what they did is they test their fecal matter, and they had almost no good bacteria and a lot of pathogenic bacteria in their gut. So what they did is they took these healthy, thin, vegan, raw vegan people, and they tested their fecal matter, and it was beautifully rich because they were eating organic products. So then they took the feces out of the good patients, and they injected it into the 250 diabetic patients after they checked to see if it had any diseases or pathogens in it. It did not. 4 weeks later, the people that had diabetes had no symptoms. None. And their microbiome was back to where it was supposed to be with 100 million bacteria. Is that amazing? So they said you don't have to be that dramatic or that, but he is suggesting, watch the video, I'm not a doctor, but he's suggesting taking these probiotics. Now, let me show you these pictures of a couple. So that's called a probiotic. You can go to the health food store and buy them. He says do several different types because they have several different types of bacteria. And don't do them all at one time. Do one this week, another week, and do your enema or eat them. It's not going to be as effective as eating them. But he says you'll replace the biology back into your intestines and quit eating the pesticides and quit taking the antibiotics. He says you should only take an antibiotic if it's a life and death situation. And then replace the bacteria. And he says it's a lengthy process to get it back in there and get it all right. But we're doing the same thing in the soil. Next week I'm going to teach you how to get this biology in the soil. This week I'm going to teach you about fungi and how to put it in the soil and how to put the bacteria in the soil, but today it's all about bacteria, okay? All right, bacteria food web produces mostly, NO3, which is nitrates. And that's significant because fungi produces NH4, which is ammonium. And that's significant. There is an issue here that you need to understand, all right? Have you ever heard of nitrogen-fixing bacteria? Anybody ever heard that? Nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Carter has. Okay, nitrogen-fixing bacteria for legumes is called Rhizobium. We get this as inoculants, as farmers. And you can grow all your legumes, including clovers, which is a legume, with no fertilizer at all. Zero. Okay? So, most people don't. Most people don't even know about it. So they don't do it. But all you have to do is take this Rhizobium. All right. These are two different types of Rhizobium. And one is for field peas. And the other one is for beans. Okay? Now what you do is you take a teaspoon of this and then put it in a gallon of water. And then take your seed and put them in a bowl and pour a gallon of water on it. soak for 15 minutes. Take that then and pour the water off of it into a colander, and then take a towel, put it on the counter, and pour your seed on it, and let them dry. 3 hours later, you plant those seeds that are inoculated with Rhizobium bacteria. Okay? Now this Rhizobium bacteria, if you are not fertilizing, remains in the soil and multiplies. So you don't have to do this over and over and over again. I'm going to show you what it does to the plants. That is what they call nitrogen fixation on a soybean. Okay? This one is a field pea. These are root nodules, and it's full of nitrogen. They're the size of marbles. Okay? When you pull up that plant, if you don't see that, you did not do any nitrogen fixing. Now, not only does it improve the plant health and feed the plant all the nutrition it needs, it also feeds any plant that's near it. So, have you ever heard of companion planting? Companion planting, if you were to take and run your rows of corn, and then run these right in the middles, up and down it, it will feed your corn all the nitrogen it needs. And you don't have to do anything to the corn. You never have to feed it again, never put any fertilizer on it again. It'll feed it automatically with this companion planting. Okay? So, it also inoculates your soil with this bacteria and takes it out of the atmosphere, the N2 nitrogen, and converts it. Now, all the rhizobiums convert it to ammonium. And these are the exception. That's why I say most bacteria produces nitrates, with the exception of several, which I'm going to cover now as an exception. This does ammonium. All right, just to show you the difference. All right, this was grown with no fertilizer in the field. No inoculant was put on those seeds. There was no fertilizer in that field. None. But these will produce a lot. Now look at this next one. All right, this is no fertilizer field. That's with Rhizobium. All right, without inoculant, no fertilizer. With inoculant, no fertilizer. Without the inoculant, no fertilizer. With inoculant and fertilizer. It takes the nitrogen right out of the air and feeds the plant. The bacteria also takes the phosphorus, the potassium, the calcium, the magnesium, the sulfur, the manganese, the selenium, and converts it into nutrition for the plant. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to feed it. You don't have to do anything at all. Nothing. Is that remarkable? Is God amazing? All right. Okay, nitrogen fixing in non-legumes. Now this is the biggest secret in the United States. Now I want to ask you this question. Where do universities get their funding? Is it from the government? No, it's not. In fact, all the agronomy departments, which are the departments of agriculture, all the agronomy departments, where do you think they get their funding from? Monsanto, DuPont, all the chemical companies, everybody that makes fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. That's where they get it. Millions of dollars a year. Well, they did these studies and said, you know, it's interesting that in the United States, one company owns us, and that's Monsanto. And this nitrogen fixing occurs in every single plant species on the face of this earth through another thing called Azotobacter. Azotobacter is a series of bacteria that produces ammonium, not nitrates, and you can get it in this form, azotes. Now, the nice thing about it is once you inoculate your seed with it, and it gets into the soil, if you don't destroy it by nuking it, fertilizing it, pesticides, herbicides, or stuff, it'll stay there, and it will work for you. Also, you can take and grow this stuff. You know, you've heard of people growing things on a petri dish. That's not the way you grow bacteria, incidentally. Good bacteria, only the pathogens. But we have ways of growing this. I could take a teaspoon of this and make it into gallons in 24 hours. By putting it into a a tank that has molasses that feeds these. Every 4 hours they double. 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 And you have to have a bubbler in there because they're air breathers. You have to have a bubbler in there. And then when you get through, you can inoculate your whole field with this stuff. And you'll never have to buy it again. Just save a little pinch each time for the next batch. And then you can just inoculate this bed, inoculate that bed, inoculate this bed, inoculate this, inoculate that. And you won't have to grow with fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides ever again. All right. Now this Azotobacter species, this was done in India. This study was done in India, and they took this stuff and put it in a hydroponic greenhouse. They did this study. And they put it into a hydroponic greenhouse that usually has nothing but chemicals in it. And I want to show you what they grew with it. All right? Watch this. That's what they grew with it. Only water and Azotobacter. That's it. And it took the nutrition right out of the air and fed it to the plant. Do you need to use chemicals? Absolutely not. Don't waste your time. Now I'm going to show you something that's interesting. I did a little study. And I'm not going to give any of these away. These are my wife's. I'm married a long time for a reason. All right. Now I haven't cleaned these off, but I did a little study to find out how well red potatoes. My wife loves red potatoes. Those little new red potatoes, you know. They're usually, you buy them, they're about that big, right? All right. I just want you to see this. I grew these biologically. Biologically. Now, I averaged, you know how much I averaged per plant? I only had a few plants. I was just testing. You know, right now I'm in the phase of everything I learn, I apply. I learn and I apply. I got 5.2 pounds per plant. Per plant. Do you know how much you get in a field, average? On average, if you plant a pound of potatoes, you get 10 pounds of potatoes if you have the most ideal conditions. This was one eye produces 5.2 pounds of potatoes, averaged. That's remarkable, guys. There is no reason why we shouldn't take this and run with it. We have no reason, because red potatoes don't grow this big, guys. They don't grow this big. Now, in the new heavens and new earth, I'm sure we're going to have some amazing vegetables. But right now, we can have a whole lot better than you think we could have. All right. Now, these are pseudo-nomads. These pseudos are very good at decomposing toxic substances. If you put on if you put a pesticide, herbicide, fungicide that's sitting in your soil, you can buy these bacteria in a culture like this, spray them on your soil. They'll eat the DDT, they'll eat the Roundup, and they'll spit it out as fertilizer. I'm telling you what, we have got a wonderful wealth of information out there today, but Monsanto is trying to choke us down, so a lot of the stuff we get from Europe, we get this from Europe, because they don't want this out in the public. So you can buy this, incidentally, you can buy this in a small amount. I buy it because I do a lot more planting than the average person does. But this is a large amount, and you can buy this inoculant for legumes anywhere. I got this on Johnny Selected Seed. I bought this on Amazon.com. But it's really a wonderful process to learn this stuff. Bacteria has no interest in the plant's health. None. Okay? It's a symbiotic commensalism. They exist ultimately to feed each other. And this is a symbiotic relationships. There's commensalism, mutualism, and parasitism. That's when a tick is on your body sucking the blood out of you. You get harmed, and they receive a benefit. Mutualism, both receives a benefit. We're going to cover that next week. Fungi is mutualism. Bacteria is commensalism. Not important to know. I'm going to give you an assignment now. It's getting started. Assignment number 1. Here's the assignment. Now, also, does anybody know what this is? Cucumber. All right. You see that? That's a flower on the end of it. That was grown biologically. It's it tastes wonderful. My wife took these to school one day, and a lady at the counter who doesn't grow, she says, "Oh, you even put a bow on the top." That's a flower. Now, nobody steal these potatoes because my wife, they're hers. All right, so assignment number 1. How do you prepare your first step in your garden? Here's your first step. Put black plastic down or clear plastic. Now, what you want to do is you want to kill the soil. You want to kill all the pathogens in the soil. You want to kill all the weed seeds, and you want to kill the grass. So that's the first thing you do, Carter, to the area that's growing nothing but weeds. All right, now, the very first thing before you ever put the plastic down is to water that soil so it's sopping wet. Now, the reason why that is because the heat that's coming through this plastic, it can be clear plastic or it can be black plastic, but the heat that's coming through that will transfer down deep into the soil if it has a way of doing it. It will steam fry all the pathogens. Now, what's interesting is this. When you take this plastic and put it out, you want to cover all the ends up really good so none of the heat escapes. And I put a thermometer in mine just to see how hot it gets. It gets 140 degrees. You want to leave it there 4 to 6 weeks. Now, here's the rule. If a weed seed will die in 3 days at 131 degrees. It will die in 24 hours at 165 degrees. It will die in 2 days at 150 degrees. That's the general thing, including pathogens, including nematodes, including all the bad biology, all the pathogens will die at heat. But the good guys only die at above 180 degrees. Yes?
White or black?
Doesn't matter. White or black. I've tried them both. They both work just as well. Everybody has tried both ways. They work just as well. Here's black. I put them both in there. And it only needs to be 1 or 2 mils. It doesn't have to be this heavy stuff. Again, put it out on the soil, cover all the ends. It wouldn't hurt for you to get one of those thermometers, stick down the soil, make sure that soil gets up to 140 degrees. You want to get it up to 140 degrees, and you want to keep it there 4 to 6 weeks. When you get through with that, here's a field being done. They call it solarization. When you get through with that, you will have an area completely free of weeds, of any pathogen. You will never, for 1 whole year, you will not have a weed in that. Now, you get tired of fighting weeds? This is the way to fix it. Trust me, I've done areas and say, okay, now this is going to be my garden spot. Now, the next step, I'm going to show you the next step next week. So, as we go along, I'm going to show you the next step. But you've got this one to get started on. Get your area free of pathogens, free of disease. And the next week, I'm going to show you how to get rid of, if you put chicken manure on your land, if you put fertilizer on your land, how to get rid of it all. Okay? And it's going to be an easy process. I'm going to do a little show and tell. It's going to be so easy it'll surprise you. Okay? So that's what you'll end up with when you get through. Do not till it. I'm going to show you where the week after next we're going to go cover compaction. All of our soil is compacted. I have this tool that tests soils. Most of our soils are compacted at 9 inches, some of it 13 inches. It's so compacted that a root cannot penetrate. It's at 300 psi. 90% of the roots cannot, 93 or 4% of the roots cannot penetrate 300 psi. Once you get down to that, I'm going to show you how to break up that compaction layer without tilling and without rotor tilling it, without plowing, without any of that. It's so simple it'll surprise you. So this process, most people work way too hard in their garden. It's a lot easier than you think. You're fighting against nature, and you really don't want to fight that hard. Work with a brain, not with your muscle. Okay? Let's see if I have anything else. Oh, now this is what it was before, and after he put the black plastic on it, that's what it was when he got through. Doesn't that look nice? Nice place to grow something. All right. That's it. Anybody have any questions? Questions?
Well, I thought I'd rather eat earthworms than hoe a garden, but I think maybe I'll backtrack on that. I don't want to eat an earthworm. I didn't realize they would do that.
Earthworms are your friends.
What temperature would kill nutsedge?
Kill what?
Nutsedge.
I still didn't hear you, Jacqueline.
Nutsedge. Looks like grass, but it's...
Oh, you talk about nut grass? 140 degrees. it'll kill it. Yes. You know what? It really doesn't matter. I put in my greenhouse redworms, red wigglers, and I put in there Alabama jumpers. Alabama jumpers are better, but they cost a lot of money. Earthworms produce, they double and multiply every 90 days, they double every 90 days. So Jim's Worm Farm is where I buy my worms from. He's up north, but he only feeds his plant material. Some people feed him a lot of chemical stuff and meat and cheeses, and he only feeds his plant material, so I buy it from him. You can get 5,000 for $94. 5,000 is a lot of worms, incidentally. It goes a long ways. Yes, Chip?
How do you get rid of your armadillos? Keep them out of your earth?
You use a shotgun or a 22, and you stay out at night. Because I've done it. Yes.
What do you think when you hear the phrase that the soil is man's external metabolism?
You know, he says, what do you think when you hear the term soil is man's external metabolism? Do you know that there are people in Japan and on Okinawa that eat dirt? They eat dirt because they want the biome in them. So, do you know that our makeup matches soil perfectly? It's a remarkable thing. If God said He made you the dust of the ground, and He breathed into your nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul, we are connected to this earth. Your wife first, Joy, you had your hand up?
Yes. At what point do you put the worms in after you've done all this?
Okay, you want to have the soil healthy, and then put the worms in. Yes, don't put them in a poisonous soil. Then Brother Sanchez.
In regards to us having the same chemistry as the earth, we do have ocean water as well. So.
Oh, do what?
We have the same.
Ocean water. Yes,
ocean water.
Exactly right. Yes, and Trish. I'm brain dead. My brain's not functioning correctly. I must have biome messed up.
My question is this. If I prepare my soil like this, will it kill the earthworm?
No, will not kill the earthworm.
I have another question.
Okay.
My land I'm thinking about has not categorized since 2012. Do I need to go through this whole process you just gave us?
If you have any weeds, yes. And you want to kill pathogens. Now think about this. You want to kill all your pathogens in the soil. Pathogens die at 131 degrees at 3 days. If you don't have any pathogens, you don't know if you do unless you...
I have no grass, no nothing.
You probably don't have anything good in there. You need to kill the pathogens.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
That was my question.
Yeah. If you had good biology in that soil, it'd be growing grass right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Can you buy that stuff around here, like in the farm stores?
I think you can buy this Rhizobium, these different species of Rhizobium from Live Oak Farmers Co-op. But I buy it from Johnny's Selected Seed because I buy so much from them. And the other one you have to buy, it comes from Europe, and you have to buy it from Amazon. It's the only place I know to buy it. Because it comes from Europe, and I'm telling you what, the scientist told us about it that I'm taking this course from, and she said they are fighting tooth and nail that this doesn't get out because it will grow everything without any fertilizer.
So how do I find that on the internet? I
just put AZOS.
Okay.
AZOS is easy enough. Beneficial microbes to promote growth. It is a nitrogen-fixing bacteria that produces ammonia. Yep, AZOS. Anybody else?
How much does a bag like that cost and how far does it go?
Well, this is a lot. Okay, this would probably inoculate 200-acre field. Yeah, this is a lot of stuff, guys, and it will last 2 years in this condition.
Shelf life?
Shelf life is 2 years.
And the cost?
You really want to kill your pathogens in the dirt because you don't want to compete. And you want to incorporate organic matter, we're going to cover that next week, in order to feed the new microbes you're putting in. But you want to kill all the pathogenic substances in the soil first. And you don't do it chemically, you do it with a plastic. So most of you guys don't have a 20-acre field you're doing. So for me, to go out of my field and to do it, it's impractical for me to put plastic out that big. But for you guys, if you're having a garden, it works perfect to put black plastic out or clear plastic. Yes, Mr. Arson.
when we, I think it was last year, we planted beans. And while we were planting them, we discovered that we had not planted them there, but melon plants were growing into the rows. Were growing out on the rows that we were planting the beans.
Yeah, that's probably citrus.
Yeah.
It's which grows naturally in this area. All it needs is an ideal environment. Yes?
The reason why they had gotten there was because we were moving compost stuff.
You put the seed there.
And the melon seeds were kind of mixing with it, so the melon seeds.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Anybody else have anything before we close? All right, guys. We'll start next week, and we're going to cover fungi, and now also how to inoculate your soil with this beautiful bacterial mix. And it's a very simple process. This is all easy stuff, easy to do.